My name is Andrea Vargas, and I find something special about sharing the gallery that represents me here in Santa Fe, New Mexico. It's called King Galleries, and it's a special place. I'm originally from California, but we find in this gallery a way to see paintings of the Southwest, of the desert, of the land, and as well as the pottery that's made by living and breathing native Pueblo artists. So it's undeniably a place to receive inspiration and to reconnect with the legacy that belongs to all of us. It belongs to all of us as peoples of the Americas. And so there's much to share. My recent body of work is inspired by the desert, the thunder clouds, and thick paint. And I look forward to more people getting to share that experience and those beautiful aspects of Earth.
Most t-shirts are simply cool to look at or look in. Well, so are ours. But ours also aim to send a message. They aim to put a name on obstacles that once stood in your way and aren't there anymore. Struggles that you turned into successes and crushed. You made it look easy. Shop at mile.today. Mile.today. www.mile.today. A GNS collection.
This is Sherelle, creator of the Business Lounge for Successful Entrepreneurs, and you're listening to the E.I.T.H.R podcast, hosted by E.I.T.H.R.
Happy Friday, ladies and gentlemen. It's your boy Decal here, hosting the episode number 36 of the E.I.T.H.R podcast. Man, I hope everyone's doing good out there today. It's coming for you live from the GNS Inc. HQ here in beautiful Northern California, Sacramento, California to be exact. The state capital of the Golden State, here dominant up the West Coast. It's not too bad weather-wise today out here. It's about 102, 104, somewhere around that part. So we're surviving. Listen, we made it another week. Episode number 36. I want to give a shout out to some of my new listeners in the 916, some of my new listeners I have in Lodi, the 209. I want to give a shout out to some of the people in San Francisco, some of my new loyal fellowship that's coming from Hayward, California. I want to give a shout out to Los Angeles, the Dago, to the 619. I want to give a shout out to Salem, Oregon, to Texas, to Florida. And actually, I want to give a shout out across the pond to London, Manchester. I want to give a shout out to Spain, listeners in Denmark, India, Austria. It's a beautiful thing, man. Who would have thunk, this little kid from Oakland would have a voice that the world may want to listen to. How about that? If you're social media savvy, which most of you are, you can follow us on Instagram. You can also follow us on Twitter. The handle is the same. It's at E.I.T.H.R, the Ether. For those who are new, tuning in for the first time, the way this podcast works, it's a platform for people to speak freely. Being that we don't have any phones set up just yet, it is a work in progress. I try to represent both sides of every argument or every type of perspective that's on the podcast from a very non-biased devil's advocate point of view. So even if it's a viewpoint you don't necessarily see, I try to give it to the people from a multitude of aspects to where even if you don't change your understanding of it, you have a better understanding of it. Because a lot of us, as my A1 would say, uninformed opinions. And it's better to have an informed opinion, so when you are making an argument against a certain point, you at least know what the fuck it is you're talking about. So, for those who don't know, the E.I.T.H.R stands for the elephant in the room, and it's pretty much one of those situations where, hey, it's topics that we don't want to speak about that we need to bring light to, but we don't necessarily know how to do that. And that's kind of what we're here for. So, I want to give a shout out also to my people in Los Angeles from Watts. I told my dude I'll give him a shout out. Watts up. And to my girl, Key, who wanted to make sure that I put on the map her people's Bullets and Rosecrans, where they say, don't get caught after dark in the park called Ludus. She just wanted me to make sure that I put that out there for her. So there you go, girl. That's for you. So if you hear this and your peoples get wind of it, you know, you are a celebrity. So I just want to give you a shout out for that. What we also like to do here at the E.I.T.H.R podcast, we like to give shout outs to those out there doing their thing, such as firemen, police department, teachers, students, everyone who's out there busting their ass the best way they know how to, and keeping their sanity without going to prison, jail, or getting arrested for doing some dumb shit. We also like to give inspiration and motivation to people. And so what we're going to do to motivate and inspire people is to understand you're doing the best that you can, and that's all you can do. Don't worry about anybody who's critiquing you, because they're going to critique you no matter what the fuck it is you do. If you go right, they say you should have went left. If you went left, you're going to say you should have right. If you stay home, they say you should go outside. If you're outside, they're going to tell you should have stayed in the house. You can't please everybody. And if you try to please everybody, you'll wind up pleasing the last person that's most important, which is yourself. So, shout out to y'all. And keep your sanity. Keep doing what it is that you're doing. And don't worry about anybody else's opinion. Especially those who ain't paying your bills. So I just want to let you know. The topic today we're going to talk about is, if you haven't heard, about some issues going on in the NFL, and it has a track record of doing some very tricky, iffy, non-appropriate type of stuff. We are definitely going to touch about that and how that also affects other people's lives, ties in together, because this is something that I feel that a lot of people don't talk about, because society does not want us to speak on it, because society wants things to be a certain way. And if you're trying to educate yourself, it doesn't help if you think the same, because that's not education. That's a carbon copy of what you already know. And what you already know may not be right. So we're going to get right into that on the other side of this little shout out, this break. And we'll be right back.
Stop stalling and start miling. Mile.today. That's MILE.today. Mile today. Make it look easy.
So, if those who aren't really too familiar with what's going on in the National Football League, Deshaun Watson, quarterback for the now Cleveland Browns, he settled on a domestic violence lawsuit that was brought against him between 24 between 24 to 30 women. Now I know a lot of you are sitting back saying, that's a lot of women. Some people are very informed of what's going on with the situation. Some people don't follow sports, so they really don't know what's going on with it. I'm not going to get too much in the weeds and the details of it, because if you really are interested in the Deshaun Watson situation, you can just go online and Google it. Do your best, though, to try to go to sources that are credible. Not so much blogs, because blogs are pretty much written opinion pieces about situations from other people's perspective. Not every blog is going to be neutral, down the line, non-biased. A lot of blogs are going to be biased, one-sided, short-sighted, very opinionated one way or another. But the most intriguing thing that I personally get from people when you're discussing certain matters such as racism, sexism, domestic violence, anything that creates some type of tension amongst people based on race, gender, or geographic location. A lot of the people who are involved, man, they have personally never been involved in the situation. They've seen it from a distance. They've seen it from afar. They've seen it from a third party. I remember during the premiere of Straight Outta Compton, Ice Cube was in an interview, and he says, listen, you get to see what it is that we went through, but from an extremely safe distance. Well, yeah, you went through it from a safe distance. We got to see what they saw 30 years in the future, right? We saw what they saw 30 years ago, 30 years from when it happened. So, yeah, it was an extremely safe distance. And in most movies, when you see situations like Pursuit of Happiness or again, Straight Outta Compton, movies where the star of the film is an individual or individuals who have a success at the end of the story, so you're now watching their journey. And I remember doing this before I was hip to the game. You make the judgment on the people that they come along with or that are along with them on the ride, that either screwed them over, did them dirty, sold them short, took advantage, left them hanging, didn't answer, changed phone numbers, child custody battle, divorce, whatever the situation is, right? I'm sure we all see movies like that. Again, we're looking at it from the perspective of the person who's starring in it, and they're telling you what happened. Again, we're going to be biased towards that person because we either like this person, we're fond of this person, we're a fan of this person, so they're telling us their story. So of course we're going to hate in the movie Pursuit of Happiness his son's mother, because we know Christopher Gardner made it through at the end. We know he survived at the end. We know he became this successful stockbroker. We get that. So now we're looking at how he and his wife separated. We're looking at how they broke up. We're not watching the film and explaining why they broke up. So we sit there in the stands, in the audience, on the couch, in the chair, critiquing her, calling her names. Oh, you dumb bitch, you shouldn't have stayed with him, you should have left him, right? Or see, she don't deserve that kid. The only reason why we're critiquing her is because we know the end result. Life ain't like that. You don't know the end result when you're in the situation. So the annoying part about all that is taking the risk that the vision that you have in front of you is actually going to come to fruition. So a lot of people don't get that. So when it comes to the Deshaun Watson situation, we only have access to the information that they provide us. And if anyone understands how media works, for the most part, they're never going to give us the whole story. And if they give us the whole story, they're only going to give us bits and pieces of it at a time, because they have to make the story, in my opinion, last. Especially if it's a slow news day. especially if it's a slow news week. And I've talked to people who are also in different aspects of media. Sometimes they'll put out misleading articles on purpose because it leads to higher clicks, and in some positions, these clicks offer job security because it shows their bosses people are engaged in their articles. You see it all the time on Twitter. It's called clickbait, right? It's articles that are specifically written just to get you to click on the shit. And the information that they have in the heading is either somewhere at the end, but you got to go through 47 clicks to get to it, or it's not exactly what you thought because it's not exactly what you expected to be based on how they worded the title of the article. Okay, so I say all that to say this with the Deshaun Watson situation. What he did was foul. What he did was disgusting. What he did was wrong. What he did was out of pocket. But I am going to say this. What he did, in my opinion, is no different than what's been happening with professional sports for decades upon decades. Does every single athlete do this? Absolutely not. I don't believe so. I believe there are more athletes who do the right thing than there are who do the wrong thing. But the wrong thing is what sells news. That's what gets the attention, unfortunately. It's drama. It's what keeps everyone going. That's what keeps Hollywood. So, what I think, feel, and believe what happened with Deshaun Watson was my man was put in a situation that he's been in before, which is no different than other teammates. Good looking brother, man, 24, 25 years old. Star football player in the NFL, young, bright future. He's put into a situation that he hasn't been introduced to before, that he has been introduced before, so he's not new to it. I think what happened when you get a professional athlete who's been a star from pee-wee to elementary school to junior high school to high school to college, you've gotten all these breaks, you've gotten all these accolades, you got all this recognition, you got all this praise. I said this on previous episodes. You get all this praise. Whenever there's a situation, someone is there to bail you out of trouble. So you don't really truly know what discipline is because of the world you come from, the world that you're in, and the world you're about to enter. So the rules are different. Some would also call it a double standard. I think what happened was my man was told no, one way or another, even if it wasn't verbally expressed the way it should have been expressed. He was told no. He didn't take no. And it led to what it led to. Now, I will say this. If a woman says no, the answer is no. If a woman says stop, the answer is stop. If a woman says don't, the answer is don't. Simple as that. However, and this is the part where it might get a little tricky for a lot of people who's listening to the podcast right now. There was a time where men were told no, but it didn't mean no. There was a time where a woman would tell a man no, and that no was to see how bad you wanted it. That no was to see, is he going to pursue? Anyone remembers the song by Aaliyah, if at first you don't succeed, dust yourself off and try again. So even if you are rejected, are you going to take that rejection as a I'm not interested? Or are you going to take that projection as a, not right now, boy, try harder? The movie Hitch with Will Smith. What does it mean? Try harder, stupid. Right? Some women used to give you the projection to see how you would pivot your next shot. Does he overcome obstacle? Is he easy to deter? What's his makeup like? Now, is every woman like that? No. And again, that was a few years ago. So the world has changed. But not everyone changes with it, because even though we live on the same planet, we're not all living in the same world. That's the difference. Right? So with these accusations, my man is finding out that the no actually meant no. Now, there's been some text messages that have been released, graphic, horrible, that say, I apologize. I didn't mean to make you feel this way. Let me tell you something. In the world of social media, a lot of people, right, fellas, will send some crass, will send some crude, will send some shit on a post in a reply. Some of y'all send that shit to an inbox, right? And if you don't get the response in which you were expecting, then you hit her with the, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to make you feel this way, I didn't mean to upset you. Because as a guy, once we realize we went too far, fellas, we went extremely too far, right? It's kind of like when you recognize the body is hungry, that's because the body's starved. It's past hungry. It's starved now. Most women, at least in my experience, give hints, give subtle signs that they expect for us to read. Some of us are good at it. Some of us are bad at it. But then you get into the whole, if you read the sign, is that what she meant at that time? Or is that what she meant in general? It's case by case scenario, right? So you got to look at it from the perspective of a woman as much as you can. Where, again, man, if she says no, she says no. And I'm so much of an overthinker that if someone says no, I immediately stop. And it has put me in situations where the woman kind of looks at me like, no. I'm like, listen, I'd rather be too safe than too reckless, right? Listen, I am 6'3", 300 plus. If a motherfucker tells me no and I keep going, there's really not much she can do to stop me from doing what I'm doing. So I'd rather stop on my own and have her explain, no, you'll know when I say no. I'm like, okay, because telling me no doesn't mean no. And then when I say this to them, they have this look on their face like, fuck, he's right. No does mean no. But my no is a different no. And that's too confusing for fellas. We're simple creatures. Well, some of us, right? Touch here, lick there, grab here, pull here. Some guys scratch when they should rub. Not everyone is. They don't read signs, even if you draw them a picture. Shout out to Bum in Ohio. So even if you are direct with some of us, most of us are blunt instruments. So again, with the Deshaun Watson situation, I think, feel, and believe that some of these women get put over the, yes, I think he crossed the line extremely dramatically with some of these women. But I also believe some of these women are also jumping on the gravy train and taking advantage of it. I do. I honestly do. Which sucks because it's like the boy who cried wolf. Right? When there's finally, it's like someone who consistently pulls the race card. Sis, all because you're brown, yellow, red, or black, or white, doesn't mean they didn't give you this or they gave you this because of that. That can't always be the answer, because when you run into a situation where race is the problem, you now water down all your credibility. You took it away from a real life situation. And now people roll their eyes at it. I was like, oh, it's because you're black? Okay. Even if it's a legitimate gripe, and it is because you are black, or because you are Asian, or because you are Mexican, even if it is the case, no one's going to believe it because they hear it all the damn time. So when it comes to harassment, I think, feel, and believe some women just pull that card because, hey, I'm about to jump on this class action lawsuit type of thing, right? Which sucks for the women who actually were assaulted, who actually were emotionally scarred, psychologically scarred. That sucks. But my man's coming from a world where you are a 24, 25 multi-millionaire athlete for a professional football team. And I have access from the team to all these masseuses and massage therapists to make me to massage shit and relieve stress. So he's kind of going on the team's Tinder account of massage therapists looking for a baddie, right? In that world, ladies and gentlemen, you have to understand that's a different world than we live in on this side of the tax bracket. It just is. It just is. National radio is not going to speak on that because, of PC. But it's a podcast, baby. This is the E.I.T.H.R podcast. We're going to talk about the elephant in the room. Now, everybody wants to sit back and say men should behave themselves no matter what. I agree. Men should behave themselves. We should keep our fucking hands to ourselves. You're absolutely right. But what did you do when the door opens up and there's a light at that tunnel and you're being invited to come into that wolf house? What do you do? What do you do? No, I can't. I've been told in the state of California, if you are in the midst of a sexual act with a young woman, I'm guessing anybody, they do not even have to verbally say no. They could think no. And that's good enough for the court to at least look at the case. And the reason being is because that young lady could have felt in danger and not comfortable or safe based on what you could have done had she said no. So, therefore, she kept her mouth shut. Is that fair to you? Absolutely not. But guess what? That's how it works. It's a loophole. You don't have to tell me no. You can think no. But because you were in fearful and safety of your, you kept it to yourself, and now you feel a certain type of way and you want to report it. Is that fair to the guy because he didn't know? No. But the court's also going to say you should have been aware of, because ignorance of the law is no excuse. You should have been aware that she wasn't into it based on. Now again, there's going to be situations where the court's going to look and say, girl, you should have said something. How was he supposed to know? If you're going along with it, but you're thinking no, but you're not acting no, how is this man supposed to know? The answer was no. So it doesn't necessarily always work in their favor, but it's a very slippery slope. And again, with Deshaun Watson, none of us were in the room to know what happened. It could have been one of those situations where the young lady acted as if she wanted it, then last minute said no because she knew. All I gotta do is say no once, and I got his ass. There's some con artists out there like that. There are. I remember being at a young woman's house nearly 10 years ago. And this is when I was working security. And we're on a living room. And in my mind, she's not giving me any signs. Nothing. I come from the era where if the lady wants it, she's going to grab your hand. She's going to lead you to her room. Or she's going to lead you to do something. This woman did nothing. She got to just lay there and allow me to do all the work. And because of what I just said, I didn't fall for it. I'm sitting here waiting for her to give me a sign, and she never did. So I literally up and left. I left. Blue balls and all. I dipped. And I'm walking out slowly, waiting for her to tell me to come back or tell me, where are you going? Like, no. We're going to finish what we started. I'm waiting for something like that. So as I'm closing her door, she's pretending to be asleep on the couch. I took that as a sign of, hey, she didn't want it and wanted to see what I was going to do. So I left. I told my brother what happened. 75% of him was disappointed. Because he said, she might have been giving you the signs. They just want the signs you were looking for. So we started talking about what happened. And I was like, you know what? Maybe she was doing that. He said, yeah, this generation of women don't think like the generation of women. This generation wants you to do this, and this. And I said, yeah, but what about this? He says, we understand that, but that's probably not how she thinks. And I said to him something along the lines of, I'd rather her think that than think I got his ass. Because I ain't going to jail for something like that. And the very next night, he had an easier layup than I did and didn't act on it. But the difference was she was giving him the signs. So I think he got scared that night. I think that night took his ass for a complete 100% surprise. But it's one of those scenarios, man, with domestic abuse. Sexual assault. Each state views it differently. And I think a lot of people have to understand that when they get into conversations, how sexual assault is in Texas is maybe different than it is in Florida, which is different than it is in Ohio, which might be different than the West Coast. And the Southwest might tolerate it differently altogether, right? So a lot of people don't realize the laws where you live don't translate to the laws where I live. They may be similar. They might be on similar grounds, but they don't stand the same. And I think everyone's trying to force their law, force their right, force their opinion to be the correct one because that's where they live by. And that's not necessarily it. The speed limit is different in each state. The tickets for those speeding tickets are different in each state, right? So even though assault is frowned upon, the definition of assault varies, even by a little bit, right? There's some states where marijuana would get as a misdemeanor. There's some states marijuana will get you 10 years in jail. There's some countries you can smoke marijuana freely. And there's some countries where you have hashish oil in your travel bag and now you're doing prison time for a decade. So, you got to kind of know where you at, but it's very, very unique and different. So don't throw around your rules when we don't live in the same house because that might not pertain over here. You see what I'm saying? When it comes to that. But Deshaun Watson is settled, and most people would sit back and say, if you settle, that means you're guilty, which is interesting because the NFL settled with Colin Kaepernick on the discrimination of what was going on with with him. Yet everybody didn't agree with the perspective the NFL was guilty of anything. They was just pinpointing on Colin about, well, yeah, see, he wasn't about that life because he took the money. So I guess it all depends on how you see it, how you look at it, how you view it. will determine if you're looking at the court of public opinion. And none of us went to law school. But yeah, we all want to charge somebody guilty if we don't really care for them. And then when we get back, I want to talk about domestic violence.
No soul more innocent, none more pure. God's favorite. It's E.I.T.H.R, and you're listening to the E.I.T.H.R podcast.
Now, just like domestic abuse, I do not believe in domestic violence. Not at all. I don't. I can't stand domestic violence. I just can't. I can't stand domestic violence. I think domestic violence is extremely ugly. I think it's a situation that if you commit it, you should be severely punished. But here's the caveat. I don't believe in domestic violence whatsoever. But I do believe in self-defense. There's a difference. See, when we talk about domestic violence, ladies and gentlemen, we normally talk about one side of domestic violence. We never talk about the other side of domestic violence. And so by ignoring one side, you're not realizing, but you're enabling that side to get away with it. Here's a very, very watered down example of what I'm talking about, focusing on one side and not the other. I can't speak on any other state, but in California, when you're on the highway, it tells cars, look out for bikes, share the road. Something to the effect of, look twice, don't hit a bike. Look out for motorcycles. Which, that's safe to do. Common sense. It's safety. That makes all the sense in the world. But what you're not doing is you're not holding the bicyclist accountable. You're not holding the motorcyclist accountable. Now, anybody who's out there listening to this, I'm sure you're probably talking to your phone, talking to your radio, talking to your speaker, cussing me the fuck out, saying, I don't know what I'm talking about. And then the other people who's looking at the radio like, that part. The sign is telling the car to look out for the bike. It's not saying, person on the bike, be aware of the cars. Be cautious of the cars. Cars can't always see you. Make sure they can see you. You're telling the person behind the vehicle, behind the motor vehicle, to look out for you. Which subconsciously is telling the person on the bike, yeah, you look out for me. This is my road. You look out for me. You look out for me on your side of your car. I can split lanes and you got to watch out. What these signs should do is tell anybody on the road, look out for everybody on the road. Now you're telling the person on the motorcycle. Now you're telling the person on the bicycle, hey, cars have armor. You don't. Be careful when you're splitting lanes. Hey, if you're going to ride your bike on the freeway, make sure you give some leeway. Let the cars know you're there. Bikes, rev your engine so the driver know where you're at. Something. Because a lot of people, including myself, when I'm driving and I hear a motorcycle, it does not tell me what side of my car you're on. It just says you're somewhere around me. Now, depending on what's going on in front of me, I may not have time to maneuver. So you could be speeding up behind me, wanting to go to my left to split the lane between me and that car. But the car that's in front of me is slamming on their brakes, trying to avoid something. And there's nowhere for me to go to my right. I can't see you. So I have to swerve out of the way to avoid hitting the car in front of me. Well, you're speeding behind me from God knows what direction, trying to be Super Dave and split the car so you can have a story to tell how cool you are once you get to the bar. Fuck around and get clipped on the rear end of a car. That should not be the fault of the driver. I gave this example to go back to domestic violence. When you think of domestic violence, the first thing we think of is men do not hit women. Men, keep your hands to yourself. You do not hit a lady. You do not put your hands on a woman. Chris Rock once said in stand-up, ain't nobody above an ass whooping. Nobody. And that doesn't mean you should do it. But if you ever been in a relationship with a woman who knows that you're not going to hit her, that's almost like now I'm not saying that women are children, but it's almost like a child that knows they're not going to get spanked. Have you ever been in a relationship with a man that you don't give any boundaries to? That motherfucker going to run all over you. You ain't going to get your car back. You're going to be late for work, and you're going to get evicted. So, I am in no way saying domestic violence is a good thing. If anyone heard that, you're not listening to me. What I said is I don't believe in domestic violence. But I do believe in self-defense. I grew up in a household where domestic violence was extremely common. But it wasn't from my father to my mother. It was my mother to my father. And I remember asking my father when I was older and old enough to understand and communicate what the deal is. And he says, the last thing I want to do is to get your cousins, my nephews, involved. Because if they find out what's been going on with me and your brothers because of your mother, it wouldn't be safe for anybody because they're not going to let anyone do anything to their uncle. So I'm doing it to keep the peace because I don't want to get too big to where no one can do anything. I said, oh, okay, I get it. And I remember before that conversation, vividly in high school, a scenario that changed how I looked at domestic violence when the wrong type of person claimed to be the victim. I'm not going to get too much into it. Anyone who knows me personally, they know the situation. But that day changed my life because it made me realize if this situation is so bad, why are you continuing to let it happen? And at that point, that's when I stopped coming to somebody's rescue. That's when I stopped coming to their rescue. And I can tell you from experience, when someone knows they have no more backup, they treat people differently. God is different. It's so different. They talk to people differently. They aren't quick to talk back, lash out, belittle, bring up old shit, threaten you, because they know they have no more backup. They realize they're alone. Not only that, but they realize I have no backup, I'm alone, and you remember everything that I did to you. Let me be cool. Let me just go ahead and shut up right quick. You know what? This is one of those times, it's a perfect time of all times for me just to shut the fuck up and mind my business. And that's pretty much what happened. I grew up in a household where I saw violence to a man who did not bring violence to a woman. And when he did finally snap, because there's only so much a man can take from physical, psychological, emotional abuse and humiliation. And when that man has had enough, that's when my mother would cry victim. And all any of us saw was this woman being handled by this man. And in our minds, nothing else matters. That's my mama. You don't do that to my mama. And it wasn't again until I got older that I realized sometimes mom brings that upon herself. And anybody who wants to sit back and say that doesn't matter, that tells me you've never been in a domestic violence situation. You've only seen it from the outside. You've only seen it from the long distance. You didn't see something get thrown. You didn't see someone be verbally assaulted. You didn't hear the belittling. You didn't hear the name calling. You weren't there to find out if this person's been cheated on. You weren't there to find out if the person they were cheating on is still in the house while you're at work. I'm not saying this is the situation that happened with me. But what I'm saying is it happened to somebody. As a man, I want you to imagine coming home and the man in your house is the man that you found out is the man your woman is cheating on you with. And he's smiling in your face. And she's bringing him a plate of food. And tells you your food's in the kitchen. But they don't know that you know what you now know. What do you do? Oh, I'll just leave. Of course you would. Because you're not in that house. It's easy for you to say what the fuck you would do in a situation that you're not currently in. Right, ladies? How many times have you been in a relationship with somebody that you know damn well you should have left his ass 5 years ago? And you've only been together for 3. But you should have left his ass before you met him. Right? How many of those relationships you've been in? When you're in it, it's different. It's always different. You know why? Because it's you. Anybody who sits back and say, oh man, if I was with somebody, man, I'll leave that bitch. You sure? Are you sure? Because there's a lot of troubled relationships with people today who should be leaving them. But they're not. A lot of toxic ass relationships exist right now. But you tell me that you would have left somebody if she did this to you. Well, your girl is doing way worse. But you still with her. How many single girlfriends are giving advice to their homegirl on how to save their relationship? Listen, sis, if your single friends are telling you how to keep your man, don't listen to them. Because where their man at? Where they man at? Oh, he left? He left her? Oh, his last words was, this bitch crazy? Okay. But you gonna let her tell you what to do on how to make him happy? Okay. I'm just curious. Right? I don't believe in domestic violence. I don't. I'm a firm believer in communication. I'm a firm believer in understanding what buttons to push, what levers to pull, what switches to flip, so that way I don't do those things in a relationship. Because I've seen it. Listen, my personality is not the kind of personality that flies off the handle. Anybody who knows me knows that. They know that. I don't fly off the handle for no reason. I don't fly off the handle at all. Anyone who understands my situation when it comes to domestic violence, I've been arrested for domestic violence. And I know there's people out there who's listening to this like, ah, shit, he's going there. But my domestic violence charge didn't stick. You know why? Because it wasn't domestic violence. I restrained a woman from hitting me again. And that was the proof that was needed to send me to jail, because that was proof of abuse. I said, but I was struck and I refrained her from hitting me. Well, unfortunately, my nose wasn't bloody and I didn't have any bruises. This particular individual had a bruise, allegedly. 3 finger marks on their right bicep. And I went to jail for domestic violence. Again, I have no record of it. The DA saw this on like Tuesday, Wednesday morning and threw it out. But I still had to go to jail. Because depending on where you live, any sign of abuse, any sign of violence makes that person the victim. Whoever has the most to show, you are the victim. Had my nose been bloodied, I would have had more abuse. She would have went to jail. And I didn't know this until I was told to turn around and put my hand behind my back. It's funny, a man who doesn't believe in domestic violence goes to jail over domestic violence, yet didn't commit any domestic violence. This is why I'm very passionate about certain situations on people crying wolf. Because those who actually do the crime are not getting the attention that they deserve. Because the attention is going to those who are doing it just for a trump card. You're doing it for a situation of right now. But you're making it worse for everybody later. So I don't believe in domestic violence. I don't believe in sexual abuse. But I do believe in, if the shoe fits, you got to wear the matching shirt. Listen, anybody who is charging somebody with sexual assault, and it comes to find out that your ass made that shit up, you deserve the punishment that that person was going to receive. You should get that. I think that should go into effect. If someone charges me with a sexual assault, and listen, there's GPS, there's video, there's audio, that I was somewhere completely different at that time, you say. And it comes to the fact that no, he did not do it. Look, he wasn't even there. She said this happened at 4:25 Pacific Standard Time. He's doing his podcast at that time. Look, it's right here. So we know it wasn't him. Okay, miss, we're going to cooperate with your story one more time. What time did you say it happened? It happened at 4:25. Well, that can't be, because at 4:25 he was actually talking about the situation on his podcast. So the GPS shows that he was at his headquarters, and it was live streaming. So what time was it?
I don't remember. I don't know. This is crazy. I don't know.
Your ass should go to jail. You should get booked. You definitely should go to prison for that. Because you tried to ruin somebody's life on the ground of just being bad. And then you can live with yourself. You can live amongst others. That's the cool part about it. You can live with yourself doing something like that. That's a problem. That person is not psychologically well, and that individual should definitely be dealt with. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just not cute. It isn't. I don't believe in domestic violence. I believe in defending yourself, though. If a person puts their hands on somebody, you damn right, you should have the right to defend yourself. I don't give a damn what gender. I'm sorry, I don't care. Because no person should put their hands on anybody anyway. So it shouldn't be that big of a conversation about domestic violence. No man should have to put his hands on his woman. No woman should ever have to put her hands on her man. No partner should ever have to put their hands on their partner. It should not happen. If it's a situation where someone was disrespectful and you had to give them a wake-up smack, okay. Hey, bruh, hold that. You owed that. You deserve that one. Don't get mad. You know damn well you shouldn't have said what you said because that was a sensitive subject. That was her father, right? She lost a child, right? That's her. You knew that was a childhood trauma. Those type of smacks, hey, hold that. Ladies, you talk about his mama and you know he was close to his mom. There was a video of a woman who, oh God, what was it? She got mad at him and poured his mama's ashes in the river. You gonna pour my mama's ashes in the river? 'Cause you mad at me? My mama's ashes. See, right now there's somebody saying, yeah, see, she get her ass whooped. That will get your ass whooped. See, okay. I wouldn't go as far as an ass whooping, but you might get threatened to get thrown over. But see, that's the kind of thing people, when they realize there's no consequence, that's what they do. They have those type of reactions. They live those type of lives. They don't have a consequence. There was no line drawn of what you should and shouldn't do in a relationship. So we're going to create our own line and we're going to kick that bitch down the road as much as we want to, because what you going to do? And it's situations like that lead to extremely bad situations in relationships. That's toxic. What if he's a man that doesn't know how to deal with a woman like that? She's running over him. And ladies, you can vouch for this. You can vouch for this. If you don't see your man as a man, do you even respect him as one? How many women know the fact a man has to set a boundary somewhere in a relationship? And there has to be some type of consequence to that line if it's ever crossed. Right? That's kind of come from the father of the household. He sets the law. See, in a household, I believe the man is the king of the castle, but the woman, she runs the kingdom. I love how Beyonce and Jay-Z has it set up to where she writes the will if he passes away. That's smart. That is so damn smart. She creates the will. So whatever happens to Jay, her and the kid will get this, and this. They're protected. Anybody says that's the dumbest thing ever because of, fill in the blank. Well, don't you think she's going to be the first person they look after if anything happens to that dude? Of course. The first one. So she's going to make sure nothing happens to her man. kind of common sense, right? I'll be the first person they come after, so I need to make sure that nothing happens to you. But if anything happens to you, this is what we're going to get. You kind of put the responsibility on her. So, that's about it. That's all I got, man. Like I said, it's one of those subjects where it's domestic violence, domestic abuse. Those things are so tricky to deal with, man. They're very, very touchy for people. And again, I feel like 95% of people who are in these conversations or in these arguments, they've never been a part of it. They never seen it. They never been in it. They never had to deal with it. They never had to grow up around it. They just haven't. Whether that's good or not, it's subjective. It's subjective. But I do think that there's two different worlds. There's my world and there's your world. There's the world I live in, the world that you live in. And I think what people need to understand is, again, we're on the same planet, but that don't mean we live in the same world. To understand your world, I have to let you into mine. And before I can get you into mine, I have to be accepted into yours. And once we can learn how that works, I think we can change this planet we live in. Right? But, that's kind of where we at with that, man. I don't believe in domestic violence. I don't. But I do believe that a woman should defend herself, and I believe a man should defend himself. I don't think anyone should go overt with abuse, but I do believe that if you put your hands on somebody, you should not ever expect nothing to happen in return. That's just gullible and naive, and I don't know who thinks like that. If I punch another man in the face, I don't expect him to do anything to me, oh God, no. That's the worst thing for me. That's the worst thing for me. I need to make sure that I understand there's a consequence to my actions, because that's what's going to keep people in line. But, that's my thinking. In today's world, we live on a planet where there's a bunch of motherfuckers who do whatever and say whatever they want to, and you can't do nothing to me because that's what I said and that's what I did, and SOL. Right? There's no accountability for anybody. There's no consequence for anybody. I can post and say whatever I want, and I'm never going to meet you. I'm never going to see you because I live on this side of the country, and you can't do nothing to me because Facebook. Mike Tyson said it best, people getting comfortable not getting punched in the face for something. It's going to be a rude awakening when you say something to somebody online one time and they meet you in person. You won't know what the fuck to do. Right? That stomach is going to bubble, boy. It's going to be strange. Listen. Thank you very much, guys, for listening to the podcast. Episode number 36. This is kind of, like I said, it's a touchy topic for me. But again, it's one of those things where I also have experience in growing up around it. I have a different understanding, and I've also been involved with it. And so, you guys can more than welcome to talk about the episode and what your experience is, what your opinion is. If you're on Twitter at E.I.T.H.R. Instagram, same handles at E.I.T.H.R. You can also check us out on the Spreaker app, S-P-R-E-A-K-E-R, where you can create yourself a profile, and then you can chat along with me next time when we do our episode 37, which is going to be coming Monday at 3:30 Pacific Standard Time, 3:30 p.m. Any episodes that you may have missed, YouTube us, the parent company, the GNS Inc., and you can check this and the previous 35 episodes out. Leave comments in the comments section. We can create ourselves a whole little dialogue and share opinions and hopefully change the world for a little bit of better. So anyway, this is your boy D. Cal, the E.I.T.H.R from the GNS HQ here in Sacramento, California. I'm about to go outside and get hot. You guys enjoy your weekend. Much love. Take care. Be good.
Selena Jade, and you're listening to the E.I.T.H.R podcast with Decal.
Hey, what are you doing? My brother's doing the E.I.T.H.R right now. Go to the Spreaker app, that's S-P-R-E-A-K-E-R. Also, set your alarm for Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 3:30 Pacific Standard Time, so you don't miss any content. Remember, Spreaker, S-P-R-E-A-K-E-R, at 3:30 p.m. Search the E.I.T.H.R, E-I-T-H.R. Alright, bro, let's go get some sushi.